Now, let's try and get to some business with Parliament. Let's go right into Parliament, and we'll be right back.
Article 115 has nothing to do with what people say outside Parliament. Article 115 is a privilege or an immunity given to MPs with respect to what they say in Parliament. So if an MP defames someone in Parliament, for instance, the MP is immune. He cannot be subject to court processes as a result of something that he says on the floor of Parliament. It has nothing to do with ordinary citizens sitting outside Parliament and joining their conversation. Article 115 has been misconstrued very seriously. If it is the ground for inviting Professor Dodu to explain whatever it is that he said, and whatever it is that he said, he's privileged to say it as part of the freedom of speech clause. We are majoring in the minors. It's amazing that with all the problems facing the country, Parliament can set aside 2 days to talk about what Professor Dodu said. And what is it that he said? He said Parliament, the members are ignorant about Ebola. What is the big deal about that? They are ignorant about Ebola, as many of us are. If a professor of pharmacology asserts that parliamentarians are ignorant about Ebola, we stop whatever we are doing, and for 2 days we subject the poor professor to questions to the extent that he has to apologize. This is amazing to me. I am repeating whatever it is that Professor Dodu said, that Parliament, if they invited Professor Dodu because Professor Dodu said they are ignorant, then they have proven that they are truly and completely ignorant. And so they should invite me, and we can have a talk on Article 115. I'll explain it to them what Article 115 means.
I would first and foremost like to state myself what my counsel has already stated, that I will never, at any time or point, disrespect this great institution of Parliament, nor indeed members of Parliament. That is not my style, that is not my interest. But to the extent that my words or actions or inactions have led to that, I would offer, first to individual members and then to the House as a whole, and to the good people of Ghana, an unqualified apology. I did make certain comments, Mr. Chairman, relating to vaccine safety, and I think it would even be paradoxical to be undermining Parliament, because I stress a lot on state institutions, of which Parliament is foremost. Chairing the Global Vaccine Safety Initiative and working in vaccine safety, medicine safety for the past 25 plus years, I think I've been involved in almost all the vaccine and medicine crises in this country. One develops the passion to get this work done. And so the national interest overrode everything. But I would say to the extent that that national interest has been compromised by the heat generated by those unfortunate statements, once again, Mr. Chairman and honorable members, I would like to keep it short and say that I offer a sincere and unconditional apology to Mr. Chairman, the House, and of course to the nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome back. This is your most authoritative news analysis show, Newsfile, and you just heard Professor Alex Dodu himself and apologizing to Parliament. This was his second appearance. The first appearance, it was his lawyer who apologized for him to the effect that if parliamentarians felt that what he has said amounted to insult, then he was sorry for that. But he didn't intend to insult anybody, and he didn't do that. Well, they left that day and came back, to continue this week. and his client himself, Yoni Kolende's client, that is Alex Dodu, he himself took the seat and then rendered an apology himself. And the speaker you heard, the deputy speaker, say that that should end matters. Members should not continue to probe the issue. So he ended all the discussion at that point. They are now supposed to present their report to the plenary, and Parliament will take a decision as to what to do. You heard Professor Stephen Kweku Asare, who is based in the United States of America and who has taken very formidable constitutional challenges in the Supreme Court, has been victorious in some and has not been successful in some. And he says they should invite him. And he repeats the words of Professor Alex Dodu. The Parliament is indeed and in fact ignorant, completely ignorant, and that they should invite him. The manner in which they are interpreting the Constitution, he says, is mind-boggling. Well, let's see how that goes. Now, fortunately, on the show today, we have a man who was hauled before that Privileges Committee once for calling the parliamentarians boys and girls. Well, he apologized at the time. I don't know what you say about the present process.
Oh, well, I think that to the extent that Professor Dodu has apologized, I mean, it's becoming almost moot now.
Many are disappointed in what he did, yes, because they feel that he was right and that he should have stuck to his guns.
If way back when I appeared before the committee, if I knew what I know today, I would not have apologized. I would not have. Because I think that our parliamentarians or members of parliament are becoming something else. Where lies natural justice?
What do you mean?
When you want to become a prosecutor and judge in your own court, nemo judes in causa sua, no man shall be a judge in his own court. So parliament is set up, and then for some reason you feel that someone has defamed parliament, and which amounts to contempt, of course, if you look at 300, and so you hold a person before you prosecute the person, and then you want to punish the person. It doesn't exist, because the law itself is very clear that you may order the Attorney General to bring a prosecution, and it may surprise you that if that procedure is followed, a judge in Ghana's Republican High Court will sit down and say, but what Professor Dodu said, it's not contempt, and he will set him free, or he or she will set him free. So I think that we need to and you see something, these things, we copied all these things from England, and if you go to the website of the House of Commons in the UK, and I've just opened it, it talks about the penal powers of the House. Now, this is a report they call the Green Paper. They say that they have that Parliament has the power to punish, to give even penal punishment. But they are saying that there are two impediments. The first is the institutional reluctance to take action which may seem oppressive. This is the UK Parliament on this website saying that they are reluctant to do that because if you take that action, it will seem oppressive.
And now this UK Parliament, the last time he used this contempt powers was somewhere in the 70s.
No, it says well over a century has passed since either house, that is the House of Commons or the House of Lords, used its penal powers. In 1978, the House of Commons agreed its penal jurisdiction should be exercised A, as sparingly as possible, and B, only when the House is satisfied that to exercise it is essential in order to provide reasonable protection for the House, its members or its officers from such improper obstruction or attempt at or a threat of obstruction as it is causing or is likely to cause. And then the most important one, it says the second impediment is fear of successful legal challenge. While domestic courts may be unable to consider proceedings in Parliament, that is in England, the European Court of Human Rights has accepted this jurisdiction relying on Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which provides for the right to a fair trial by an independent and impartial tribunal. Don't we have the same system in Ghana here? The right to a fair trial. It's provided for in Article, is it 19?
Well, if they told you they are copying from the Supreme Court, what would you say? Because they have said so. They said they saw the Supreme Court haul people before them and punish them.
But that is unfortunately a very, 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 very dangerous position that Parliament has taken. let me tell you something. Contempt, you know it. There are two types of, Abraham also knows it. There are two types of contempt. Contempt in court, it occurs in facie curia or ex facie curia. You understand?
Right.
So if contempt has occurred ex facie curia, and the law says that you do contempt of court, where else should I take it? Or if, even when a judge is sitting and something contemptuous happens, instantly, the judge is empowered by law to deal with it online. So the Supreme Court never
in facie curia means you are doing it right in the face of the court. Ex facie means that you did it outside
of the face of
and
the
then it
court
was brought to their
brought,
attention.
yes.
The Supreme Court punished those guys.
Yeah. Ex facie curia.
Ex facie.
Yes.
So why is it that I didn't also allow a process of prosecution to go on?
But no, but something. The law does not. Contempt of court essentially is that. I was part of the lawyers on the day when the incident occurred. The summons that was issued to my friend Ken Crunchy and I think the electrician, what's his name?
Yes, Atubiga.
Was that
Stephen
you should
Atubiga.
come and show cause. You understand? Why you should not
be punished for contempt.
Punished for contempt. So, prima facie, the court had already taken the position that what you have done is contemptuous. But in line with the principle of natural justice, that you must hear a man before you condemn him. Come, maybe you may be able to convince us that what you did is not contemptuous. So you go home.
But that's what Parliament is also doing.
No. Parliament is not a court. They say
but they
that
have
all committees of Parliament have the powers of a high court. It doesn't make you a high court. So if Parliament, I appear before Parliament and for whatever reason on a particular date, I'm supposed to come and speak and I don't turn up, and Parliament, let's say, says Egbert should be searched out with a certain amount, I can go to the High Court of the Republic and invoke the supervisory jurisdiction of the High Court to quash that order of Parliament. So the fact that they say you have the powers of a High Court does not make you a High Court.
Right.
You are subject to the supervisory jurisdiction of the High Court. You understand?
Okay, we have gone through the mechanism of how and the limitations of the power of Parliament to punish for contempt on this platform, of course, with your very insightful, views on that matter. Now, let me hear from you. You are in Parliament yourself. Do you feel that now public, sentiment is so heavily weighed against you for these contempt invitations? Egbert says that the UK Parliament, they say they will use the powers sparingly. I believe that you're also using it sparingly because we I don't remember the last time we heard you.
No, they are using like confetti.
The last time you did it was in respect of Egbert. That was in 2004 or so.
I think what Parliament did in respect of the remarks by Dr. Dodu and Black Rasta were proper. I think they are proper. It's consistent with our own culture. And I listened to Professor Dodu and Black Rasta. I'm not part of the Privileges Committee, but that day I sat in the discussions. And I think Professor Dodu and Black Rasta, both of them, their attitudes were right. And since Prof is the most recent, let me. What I read his attitude to me is that we all hold Parliament dear. The things we say about Parliament should lift up Parliament. If remarks do not go in any way to let Parliament look good or to aid Parliament in its work, then they are unhelpful remarks. And to the extent that my comments had that effect, I did not mean to, and I apologize. I think it's a very good attitude for the professor to have taken. Earlier on, Black Rasta did the same. I think it's right. Look, I have heard people say that you should have called a bluff of Parliament. And you see, the attitude is not so much about the things that were said. Were they proper? Were they helpful? Is it a culture we want to promote in national discourse? I'm not hearing a lot of that. I'm rather hearing our parliamentarians are becoming, and Egbert just said it, they are becoming some way and call their bluff and all that. I've even heard people, and I think the last time we had this discussion here, there were even references made quoting individual parliamentarians and saying that, yes, indeed, these remarks were ignorant, and so if he said it, he said it. I think that attitude is wrong. And
but you were amazed yourself when those statements were played back to you. Kokubaku went through the Hansard and went through some of those statements.
I wasn't amazed at all. Look, in Parliament, people are elected as political representatives. But somehow we have been given a burden to discuss issues over which you would have very little command. Myself, there are matters that comes to the House and technically are very little exposure.
Yeah, so you consult, right?
Well, it's not on all matters that you are able to consult. So I reflect. I have a burden to reflect the sentiments of my constituents.
Okay, just hold on briefly. I'm coming. We are privileged to have Yoni Kolendi on the line. We're going to speak to him. But when we come back, I'd like you to address this aspect of how people feel. That Parliament seems to be suggesting to Ghanaians that, yes, we put you there, we pay and keep you, yet we don't have a right to criticize you. Is that what you are telling Ghanaians? That they don't have a right to criticize what you do in that house? Mr. Yoni Kolendi, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsfile.
Good morning, Samson.
Right.
Good morning to your studio guests.
Great.
Listeners.
Great. There are those who are very, very, very excited at the manner in which the first time you began the process, and then subsequently they hear you, profusely apologizing, and then your client appears again, and he himself renders an unqualified apology. In your words, apologizing in sackcloth and ashes. People say that was unfortunate because they supported Professor Alex Dodu, and that the comments he made, they thought, were justifiable and genuine.
First of all, Samson, to the extent that anyone considers the apologies rendered by me, first on Prof's instructions, and secondly by Prof himself, where amount to a cowardly retreat, I disagree. I think it was a most appropriate retreat. And to disappoint them further, let me use your medium on behalf of the Prof and on myself to restate the Professor's unconditional apology to Parliament as an institution, to individual members of Parliament who felt offended in any way by the comments that the Prof made, either directly or indirectly. Something number two, let me put on record that there is nowhere in the records that the Professor used the word ignorant in relation to Parliament. It did not happen. He never said so. You are a lawyer and a researcher. Find it if you think he said so. The Professor, in an interview, concluded by saying that people should find out, inquire, as the Honorable Kwatin has just said he's given to doing, or he drew a certain conclusion, which, because I consider it inappropriate, I will not repeat. But something to round it, in this discourse with you, if I said something to which you take offense, I hear it happen in your studio every day.
Right.
No matter how right I feel, I think the most civil, reasonable, and wise thing to do is, if you take exception to a statement I make and express a sense of offense, is for me to say, Samson, I did not mean to offend you, but to the extent that you are offended, I am sorry. I withdraw what I have said. That is how we are cultured. Those are our social values. Those are our Christian and cultural imperatives. It is not Ghanaian for me to say, you are offended, so what? And repeat the offense and head for a headlong collision with you. It doesn't happen. It's not right. And so we will not do that. We will not tread that path to impress those who are rooting for a fight with Parliament. Go and take the Prof's statements, interrogate it, His border was about institutional integrity and the efficiency of state institutions so that Ghana can be a better place. How can you represent institutional independence and efficiency and then go and get into a direct, purposeless fight with Parliament, foremost of institutions?
So the apology with respect was to avoid getting into a direct, purposeless fight.
No, the apology was to the extent that Parliament is offended and considers his comments inappropriate, which is what I know you, Samson, will do, which is what I know each of the people in your studio will do if an exception is taken to the propriety of a statement that they make. Okay? It is not to, and in any event, that statement has nothing to do with the scientific views of the professor, and you will see that the inquiry did not go into it. The inquiry was about the propriety or otherwise of the comments that he had made and whether they have caused offense. Something, if I offend you, whether rightly or wrongly, and you take an exception, I will apologize, unless I'm spoiling for a fight. And the professor, he's not spoiling for a fight. He's a cultured person and a gentleman. He believes in debate, but he doesn't like debate that offends. And if it's offensive, he is sorry. It's not a pretense.
Thoroughly understood. But if I could get this clarity from you once, is it the case that if it turned on, if Parliament's anger turned on ignorant, that they were ignorant, he would have justified his comments? But it is because it was rather a question of the use of shut up, which you find not to be, in tandem with our culture and everything else bad about it. That's why you apologized.
No, if Parliament's comments turned on ignorance, the apology would have been this way. Number one, that he did not use those words. Number two, but to the extent that anybody directly or indirectly infers that imputation to Parliament and to members from his words, again, he will be sorry, he will apologize unconditionally.
Okay, so shall we now understand that for as long as any individual is hauled for contempt, for as long as the one who feels has been, scandalized, the contemnor must go and beg?
No, something. I cannot set a rule for everyone. I'm not a lawyer at large. If you were held for contempt and you come to me, I will interrogate the circumstances and I will advise you appropriately.
Right.
Something I think I can say on record that there are very few lawyers in this land who fight as hard as me when they are convinced about something. I was convinced that, in a sense, there's an impropriety in the use of the word shut up and therefore warranted an apology.
Okay.
I do not myself apologize for that advice to my client. I think it was proper. I think it was wise. I think it was necessary.
Thank you very much.
Who want to fight, I have told them, you can convene a press conference and use the words you choose to use against Parliament and go there and fight.
Thank you very much, Yoni. Thank you very much indeed for this opportunity. Thank you very much for the explaining all of that to us. Now, Professor Akukwasari says that political speech is the core expressive activity that forms the foundation of our democracy. It is the highest level of protected speech under the Constitution. This protection includes the unfettered right to criticize, even insult, our representatives. To hold citizens in contempt of Parliament for insulting their representatives is to subvert democracy.
Some said we must not make it look as if in this country people don't criticize Parliament. I remember when those chairs were imported from China, people had a lot to say to Parliament. Nobody was dragged to any privileges committee. I can cite many instances. The suggestion that the invitation by Parliament to these two amounts to asking people. I can take it. I can take it. What I sincerely believe is that We love fights, eh? We love, it's sensational. Why we pay for films in which people are just killing each other. It's human tendency. When you are not in the middle of it, you love to see two people take each other on, and people would have loved for the sensation and entertainment of it to see Professor Dodu in Parliament, telling Parliament off, they decide to punish him, will not allow this, and then people love to see. I think that's what people, those who are disappointed, they are disappointed they didn't get that kind of entertainment. I think it's unnecessary. I've listened to Uni. I think he summarizes many of the sentiments I have. In the end, you see, if the words of Professor Dodu were helpful in some ways, and Parliament feels offended, then you would say that, well, I'm sorry you feel offended, but I needed to say this because it helps the nation in this way or in that way. But when you say to Parliament, I hate repeating this because Prof himself has apologized, and I respect his attitude.
And his counsel has repeated that apology on this platform.
And I respect his attitude at the committee. If this matter comes to the floor, I would vote for the least of sanctions. I would vote for the least of sanctions available.
People say you must be careful, because if you decided to activate any sanctions at all, you will not like how your representatives will take it. Look, especially when they have come and say we are sorry.
Look, I do not want to go into
in court. Don't people peg themselves of contempt?
They do.
And so when a man has done something, and a court, even a court of law, wants to punish the person, and the person comes to court and says, look, I am sorry that what I said is contemptible of this honorable court. I apologize. Courts sometimes will say, go and purge yourself of the contempt and come back.
And he only does that in such style that you love. Let me talk to Abi.
Let me land on these people.
Right.
Look, I don't know what punishment, what Parliament is going to decide in this matter. I don't know.
Of course it will come.
But what I'm saying is that if something is wrong, then generally it cannot be that simply because you apologize, you don't face the sanctions. That point has to be made.
Okay.
Otherwise, people. But still, I need 1 minute to conclude on this point because Ebek made it. Look, when you go to Article 122, he cited Britain and all that and the law. My layman mind, I read our own constitution, Article 122, and it says, any act or omission that affronts the dignity of Parliament or which tends either directly or indirectly to produce that result is contempt of Parliament.
Yes.
Now, if somebody says, shut up, you see, the judgment as to whether this affronts the dignity is in the bosom of the 275. And if Parliament found you of contempt, I'm not too sure which court you will go for the appeal. So the simple point I'm making is, that's by if Parliament found you of contempt and Parliament
I'm sure we shouldn't debate that.
We're talking about the Constitution. I'm saying that you go on to 123 and it says all the things you're saying can be done. And that even once Parliament punishes, and we have been educated that there's a limit to what Parliament, punishment Parliament can give.
If you elevate it to criminal contempt, you ought to
then you need to do something else. And the point has been made.
Bring the person in, and then the person may be incarcerated.
Yeah, the point.
Other than that, all you can do is to reprimand them.
Yeah. So the point has been made that whatever Parliament does should not stop the state institutions from activating their own process and all that. So I conclude on the point that. In all this, it's not just in respect of Parliament, in respect of state institutions with each other. If Mr. Malama made a point here, and I said, shut up, and I go to Apollo, I tell him that, look, I'm sorry. And what people looking for the entertainment of confrontation are telling me is that you have acted cowardly. I think it is wrong advice. The public must move away from this.
Let's move
and let's have decent language.
Let's hear Kokubanko says, Prof. Dodu was entitled to his decision to render an apology to Parliament. I respectfully disagree with his decision, even though I get Yoni Kolendi's drift. Let's respect their exercise of tact and discretion. However, Parliament had no case relative to the specific case of Professor Dodu. It was a sheer waste of time and an excessive display of legislative authority. I hope it doesn't become a trend.
Koku was looking
Abraham,
for the
what do you say?
entertainment of a fight. That's what I think. He was looking for the entertainment of a fight.
I was under the impression that the word that Parliament feels offended about was the word ignorant.
Right.
And I asked myself, what?
He never said it.
No, I'm saying that the word that we thought was the offensive word was the word ignorant. And I asked myself that, what is it if a Frafra man tells a Kusasi man that you are ignorant about my culture?
Yeah.
Or what is it if a Catholic priest tells a pastor from Methodist Church that you are ignorant about the Catholic doctrines?
Now we know that is not
on that score. On that score,
that is not what
I
it's
felt
about.
that
Now
there was nothing.
It's about telling them to either research and have information or shut up. So it is shut up.
Research, have information, is not contempt of Parliament.
No, shut up.
Exactly, I'm coming there. It's the shut up that I have my problems with. Because Parliament is a place where we debate. And from the word itself, Parlement means that's where they talk. So when you say they should shut up, I feel that is where he has crossed the line, as his lawyer indicated. But you see, sometimes silence is golden. Sometimes silence is golden. I honestly did not even hear what Professor Dodu, his original statement. I didn't hear it at all. It was this invitation that caused this hullabaloo that made me to become aware that Professor Dodu has said something which Parliament did not like. So, indeed, if Parliament had just ignored it, I'm not sure it would have created that kind of pandemonium that it has created in this country. Parliament is...
Nonetheless, there's information that some want us to keep to, that maybe Parliament also didn't do due diligence with the issue of ignorance. Because, for example, and this message, this is not the first I'm getting it, that we should tell Uni that Professor Dodu used the word ignorant on Peace FM. He should check. And then also, Parliament forced Mr. Ampem Darko to buy space in the Daily Graphic to apologize to KT Hammond when that MP insulted him in the floor, on the floor of Parliament and retracted. So this is just for the record.
Yes, so for me, even ignorant was not an insult at all. Now, you look at what the public is saying about Parliament. Parliament is increasingly being seen as an intolerant institution. The Ghanaian people are beginning to think that Parliament is beginning to stifle freedom of speech.
Acting tyrannical.
I think that
that's contempt of Parliament.
sometimes...
No, I'm quoting.
I think that...
Or republication.
Something, I think that
guilty.
Parliament has a public education... No, the public... They have a... The one who speaks for the public...
Public affairs outfit.
Public affairs outfit.
Yes.
Some of these things can be put in a press statement, not necessarily hauling the person. Parliament can take exceptions through their public directorate and take exceptions to some of these matters. Hauling them every day to those places makes Parliament a fearful place. And I think that we cannot be sending people to Parliament and turn around to be afraid of them. I think that they should exercise
very interesting. Now, Doc, I'll pick your view briefly on that. But Egbert, there's the argument being made by Professor Kwekwasari. And his argument is directly to George Lowe, who is also a lawyer and in Parliament.
A very good friend,
And he suggests to him that that privilege is limited to the House. So they should not extend their tentacles out of the House to call people outside to come and punish.
Yes, but that is true. The wording of that article is so clear that whatever a member of Parliament says on the floor of the House is privileged, and it goes on and on and on and talks about freedom of speech and all those things. That is how come, just like the courts, when you go and testify in court as a witness and you say something which is defamatory of a person who is either involved in the case or not involved in the case, you cannot, as an aggrieved person, say that you went and told the court you evidence that I'm a thief, so I'm suing you. It is the same way when a member of Parliament is in the course of making a contribution on the floor of Parliament, says scandalous things about people, You understand? Nobody can say you said this on the floor of Parliament, so apologize to me. It is a privilege that is fixed hard in law. You understand? And it gives you all the latitude to say whatever you want to say. Save that even Parliament itself, as regulated by the Speaker, when the Speaker realizes that somebody has said, a member of Parliament has said something so nasty about somebody who is not in Parliament and so cannot respond to it in the same measure, you say it is unfair. Please retract, withdraw that word. Even when you say something against your fellow MP on the floor, the Speaker intervenes, notwithstanding the privilege, and urges you to withdraw.
Prof's interpretation, is that not problematic if you take it to 122 and 123? Because 122, 123 clearly gives Parliament that power to go outside of the House and catch anybody who does anything that obstructs, their work or is found to be offensive.
Samson, that power, if you ask me, I want it to remain. I want it to remain. Parliament is an arm of government. We ought to respect it. You understand? Save that Parliament must also have a very large heart. Now, when you want to go penal, you understand, as in committing people to prison, our hackles will go up. And you see, I'm going to quote...
but nobody has suggested Parliament would do that.
Well, I have, but you yourself don't know what punishment is going to come. And so I'm also entitled to surmise that prison is an option.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then this on this same thing, this Nigel Fleming, QC, says, as soon as you introduce a regime of penalty, if it is going to be a prison system, it is clearly criminal because it will apply to the non-members of the House. You understand? And so look at what it takes for people to be convicted and sentenced in the courts. You want to use 30 minutes, 1 hour to send somebody's son to prison. The
requirement is to prove beyond doubt. Because contempt is criminal.
Samson, the education the other time was that Parliament can impose certain sanctions, as we've seen in the case. But if they wanted to go,
to make it criminal,
then it goes to the Attorney General.
Right.
So let's not say these things.
No. You see this view that he's raised. The Constitution provides for standing orders.
Right.
Now, when you go to, is it Rule 29 or whatever of the standing orders, the current standing order, contempt of Parliament, it says, where an act or omission which constitutes contempt of Parliament is an offence under the criminal law, the exercise by Parliament of the power to punish for contempt shall not be a bar to the institution of proceedings under the criminal law.
That's 122. That's just 122.
It's a repetition of 123.
It's a repetition, but it's a repetition of 123. But it is your standing orders, right? And then if you come to Section 43(3) of Parliament Act, it says that subject to Article 88 of the Constitution, Parliament may order the Attorney General to prosecute a person.
Exactly.
So does Parliament have the right to say, okay, we'll punish you, but when we finish, we'll send you to the Attorney General?
Yes, that is an exception to what is called
let's hear Dr. Sibe. What do you say? There are those who say it was sheer waste of everybody's time and all of these things. They should just stop and concentrate on their business in the House.
Well, I think this is an issue of press freedom. Is it an issue of guarding against press freedom or upholding press freedom?
There's limitation to every freedom.
There's limitation, of course, but Parliament is there to uphold democracy and, of course, press freedom and freedom of speech, which is very critical for democracy to thrive. And so, fine, Professor Dodu is a noble man. He has expressed his apology, and I think he has done that very honorably, and we should respect that. But with the issue of whether it was necessary or not, I think that sometimes Parliament can be a little bit more tolerant with respect to how people perceive their actions or inactions, because it serves a very strong signal. The executives, sometimes we tend to criticize the executive of hauling people or, taking them to court for libelous, actions, or, causing fear and panic, and we've all criticized that. So I think the least Parliament can do is to try to sanction that kind of actions, whereby it has to call everyone who talks or who attacks the actions to Parliament, because
Okay.
otherwise it will be deviating from its core function. I mean, what is there to do? Because obviously
but that also
people...
brings us back to my earlier question. How many times have they invited anybody?
since
Samson.
Well, but it's becoming, you know, rampant. I mean, of
Rampant.
last
in the last
month,
few
too.
weeks,
We have
people.
two,
Just
you
two
know.
people.
So we might never know what is going to happen
let me
in the future.
share
about the
let
number
me
of
share
times.
let me share with you some of the comments that have also come in. And Abdul Malik Kwekubako says that can Kweku Kwating, and this is very important, very important. Can Kweku Kwating tell us what happened to the Privileges Committee's inquiries into the cases referred to it by the Speaker in the case of bribery allegations made by Apia Ofori, Chumesi Apia, and Alban Bagwin? Charity, they say, begins at home. Consistency would help enhance legislative authority in dealing with cases of contempt and privilege. And please note that those bribery allegations were made against members of Parliament. They were the height of contempt of Parliament and violation of privilege. Do we not need to be fully informed as to the outcome of these inquiries?
I have no difficulty with this at all. If the point is being made that previous cases that have been referred to the Privileges Committee
that concern your own members,
that concerns
we
Parliament's
don't
own
hear
members
anything about
ought to
them.
be, no, it's a legitimate it's a legitimate point to raise, and we can raise it. What I think we should not do is to say that because of that, then it provides justification for other contempts of
We're
Parliament.
talking about
That's wrong.
consistency,
Samson.
and credibility to the process.
No. This oftentimes when we say consistency, we are using something that happened earlier to justify a subsequent wrong.
I'm telling you that this is discriminatory.
You say
This is discriminatory, selective application of your powers.
I have no difficulty. I could ask the same question as well.
Okay.
That those ones, what has happened to
You
them,
should not be-
legitimate.
you should not be asking
but
because you are there in the House.
Some of those
Article-
matters, I was not in
article-
Parliament. But what I'm
okay.
saying is that we can question Parliament on those issues and it will be legitimate. What we cannot do is that because of that, then if others have also wronged, you cannot. I don't think we should put the two together.
Samson, Article 115.
If you go to equity, you go with clean hands. Yes.
Article 115 seeks to protect parliamentarians from tyrannical executive rule. And it's not protecting parliamentarians from we the citizens.
Okay.
So we the citizens can make comments that seek to criticize them and hold them accountable.
Okay.
It is when executive machinery is used to gag them and to hold them into court. That is where the 115 seeks to protect them. And
Thank
not
you very
against
much.
we the ordinary people.
We take a break.
But
We take a break. We take a break at this point.
That is the
And
different
when we
case.
return, when we return,
When we say
will.
that it cannot be impeached.
When we return, we will
115.
deal with how exactly we are banning plastics that are killing us. We'll be right back.